Good afternoon, everyone. Um, when we think of the Roman Empire, we picture power, massive armies, advanced engineering, and a civilization that stretched across three continents. Rome seemed unstoppable, but what's surprising is that this great empire didn't fall in a single dramatic moment. Instead, it collapsed slowly, almost quietly, over hundreds of years. Today, I want to explain how that happened and what forces worked together to bring down one of the most powerful civilizations in history. Historians agree that Rome's fall was not caused by one event. It was a result of internal weakness, external invasions, a long-term social changes, and that slowly eroded the empire. Understanding these forces gives us insight into how even the strongest societies can weaken over time. So today I'll begin explaining the internal problems that destabilized Rome. Next, I'll discuss the internal pressures that pushed the empire toward a collapse, and finally, I'll describe the social changes that made recovery impossible. Internal weakness. Let's start with the internal issues, the problems that came from inside Rome itself. One of the biggest internal problems was the political instability, according to Rome. Instability. According to Rome, according to the World History Encyclopedia, Rome suffered from frequent assassinations, civil wars, and unstable leadership, which made it almost impossible to maintain a strong government. Emperors were constantly being overthrown, murdered, or replaced, and this instability weakened the entire empire. Rome also struggled economically. Heavy taxes, inflation, and a shrinking workforce made it difficult to support the military and government. Historian Louis C. West explains that the Rome faced chronic inflation and shrinking tax base, which meant the empire simply didn't have the money to sustain itself. The economy was built on slave labor, and as its expansion slowed, so did the supply of workers. Finally, Rome's military began to decline. Soldiers became more loyal to their generals than to Rome itself, and maintaining huge armies drained the empire's finances. These internal weaknesses created cracks in Rome's foundation long before the empire actually fell. External pressures. Once Rome was weakened from within, outside forces began to push the empire towards collapse. One of the most significant external pressures was a series of barbarian invasions. Groups like the Visigoths, Vandals, and Huns attacked Roman borders repeatedly. The New World Encyclopedia notes that Visigoths famously sat rope in 410 CE, an event that shocked the ancient world and symbolized Rome's vulnerability. Rome also became too large to defend. The empire stretched thousands of miles, and its armies were spread thin across distant borders. This military overstretch meant that when invasions happened, Rome couldn't respond quickly or effectively. At the same time, other powers were rising. Eastern empires grew stronger, and trade routes shifted away from Rome, weakening its economy even further. These external pressures intensified the internal problems and pushed Rome closer to collapse. Social and cultural changes. But Rome's fall wasn't just political or military, it was social. It was also social. Over time, Roman citizens began to lose their sense of civic pride. Fewer people wanted to serve in the government or the military, and the unity that once held the empire together began to fade. Wealth became concentrated among the elite, while poor citizens struggled and lost trust in the government. Cities also began to decline. As economic conditions worsened, people moved away from the urban centers and infrastructure began to crumble. Roads, aqueducts, public buildings, once symbols of Rome's greatness, fell into despair. These social changes weakened Rome's ability to recover from crisis, even if the empire had solved its political or military problems. The loss of unity and civic responsibility made it difficult to rebuild. So today we've seen that Rome didn't fall because of one dramatic event. It fell because of internal weakness, external invasions, and long-term social changes that slowly eroded the empire. First, internal corruption, economic problems, the military decline weakened Rome from the inside. Next, invasions, the military outstretched pushed the empire over the edge. And finally, such decline made recovery impossible. Just like the slow unraveling of the empire, Rome's fall reminds us that even the strongest civilizations can collapse gradually, long before anyone realizes what's happening. Rome didn't fall in a day; it fell in pieces, and the story shows that the greatest threats to society can often come from within.